Good morning. We have a quorum. I call the meeting to order. In the legislative session 2026, as at the last meeting, we have approved 6 items with a total commitment of $40.6686 billion. There are 5 items for discussion on the agenda, all new ones. The total amount of funding is $6.5568 billion. If all the funding proposals are approved by members, the total number of items approved stands at 11, with a total commitment of $47.2254 billion, excluding the block allocation of $22.7477 billion acquisition and land acquisition and computerization program. The total commitment of works amounts to $24.477 billion. Let me remind members, if there is any items under discussion with direct or indirect pecuniary interest, please disclose the nature of the interest before you speak under Rules of Procedure, Rule 83A. I also draw members' attention to voting on items with direct pecuniary interest under Rule 84 of the ROP. Now, Item 1, 9SG provision of welfare facilities in public housing development at Kwai Man Road Phase 2. Paper number PWSC 2026-27, number 4. Members who would like to speak, please press the request to speak button. This paper recommends to upgrade the project to Cat A at an estimated cost of $399.7 million in money of the day prices. The administration on the 20th of April consulted the welfare panel. Members supports the consideration of the PWSC relevant deliberation points has been sent to members in an email dated the 1st of June 2026. So far, there are 7 members who wish to speak. Let me read out their names. Mr. Chen Hao-fong, Mr. Stanley Ng, Mr. Andrew Lam, Miss Christine Fong, Mr. Lam Chun-sing, Mr. Dennis Leung, and Mr. Hong Kam-in. 4 minutes each member. Question and answers included. Mr. Chen, I support this proposal. We're talking about 2,000 households in the public housing estates, so there is demand for welfare facilities. You think there will be 100 places in the RCHE. The whole of the Western District is an old district. 100 places, is it sufficient to meet demand in Western or Kennedy Town? I see that there is an old population of old people at about 60%. Is it the case that there will be a long waiting time soon after the facility has been commissioned? Well, it looks like a crow's fly that is very close to the MTR station, but in fact, you will have to go uphill, so it's not very convenient. There are service teams stationed there. I believe that they spend a lot of time outside. If it's not easily accessible, I think there may be a problem. I don't think there are other modes of transport that can reach that. You will have to walk before you can take any transport. So any facilities that can help to make it easier for the teams to go to places. I think that we need to hear from Mr. Ho, the Undersecretary, in relation to the site plan, layouts, etc. And let's see if anyone else will help with the other parts. $100 places in an RCHE is a standard provision. Yes, we're aware of a demand for places in the same district. Let me give you some figures. In March, there are 704 people waiting under the standard assessment for designated homes, 374 in Central and Western District, and 261 for any places on Hong Kong Island. Well, there is a height restriction of 65 meters. We have exhausted that. Public housing estate will provide the maximum amount of facilities. We'll continue to identify other places for provision of welfare facilities, say, for example, RCHE. In relation to other questions, I will defer to Ms. She. Along Victoria Road, and there is a parking bay for buses and minibuses to drop off and pick up passengers. There is also a car park on hourly rate. There are over 70 parking spaces. In the joint user complex, there are also places for taxis to pick up and drop off passengers. Visitors or service users can go via Victoria Road via the lift tower to enter the complex. Next, Mr. Stanley Ng. Provision of welfare facilities in public housing development is something we welcome. There is a huge demand in that district. We see that there are lots of reprovisioning of existing facilities. I have some questions. Will you increase the service capacity after the reprovisioning? If not, what's the point? The project will complete in 2029. Does it mean there is a gap in service provision? How do you address that problem? That is particularly in relation to the Integrated Children and Youth Services Center. I see that there will be a new RCHE. What is the criteria for selecting the prospective service provider? From existing service providers or from an open selection exercise? Mr. Ho? I think one of the questions is similar to the previous question, is in relation to capacity. If questions on the same issue has been asked in a panel, I do not encourage members to ask questions, but since there is keen interest in this regard, perhaps we'll hear from the Undersecretary as well. That is, Mr. Ho will also answer questions about capacity after reprovisioning. we will re-provision 5 facilities. Currently, these facilities are paying market rent. And they are unable to provide up to standard accommodation. If we can reprovision the facilities, we can save about $300,000 from the leased properties. We can also provide a bigger area so that these facilities will meet the standard. About a year before the project is completed, there will be an open tender exercise. The Social Welfare Department will select the service provider from it. There will be funding for furniture and equipment as well for the service provider to run the RCHE. That's the same approach as other places. What about the standard? I defer to Mr. Chung. In relation to service transition, most of the facilities will see a seamless transition after the reprovisioning. I'd like to talk about the integrated children and youth services. There is a sub-base in Saiwan Estate. So there might be a slight service gap. A part of the services will move to a different place. But when the complex is completed, all the services will be moved under the same roof. Mr. Andrew Lam, I have some questions about cost. First, project cost. Now the unit cost is about $32,000. It's not that high, but neither is it cheap given the current situation. Compared to the Kwai facilities with a cost of about $28,000 we approved in March, is it because that the Kwai project is on a podium and this is a separate building, hence a higher cost? In relation to building services as well as energy saving measures, well, 6 facilities, about $400 million. For the other one, building services is about $30 million, accounting for 7.6%. I think is a low percentage. $3 million from energy saving measures, a saving of about 17%. For the Kwai project is $6 million, with a saving of 5%, and the building services cost less than $20 million. Why the difference? How come that the installation cost a smaller amount, but they save more? Better equipment. We're talking about 6,800 square meters with a recurrent expenditure of $20.68 million. Well, there are only 3 facilities in Kwai and 6 here. Why is there a difference?
There are 3 questions. The first is about the per square meter cost compared with the Kwai project. It's more expensive. This question has been asked before at the panel meeting. The administration has already provided an answer on that in paragraph 21 of the paper. So I invite the administration to supplement on the answer. The 2 other questions is about energy conservation and cost saved. I will defer the question to Ms. Emily Se. Thank you. On the first 2 questions, I thank Mr. Lam for raising the questions concerning the price. This project has a smaller size and there are lots of slopes on the sides. We need to build the platforms one by one during the foundation work stage. So the price would be more expensive than the charcoaling project. And also there are building height restriction for this site. There's also building separation and ventilation corridor requirements. So that explains the higher cost. On top of that, the project is located on the Hong Kong Island. Logistics would be more expensive. So that explains the price of $4,000 per square meters, taking away all those factors. So the price is comparable to that of charcoaling. You mentioned slopes. I don't think that's part of the CFA of the project. Yes, it's not part of the total. So there is a difference of $4,000 in building costs. What's the difference? The project itself is more complicated. We need to form platforms on the slopes. And we need to lay the foundation step by step. So in terms of time and financial cost, it's more challenging than the charcoaling project, which is on a flat site. Time's up. I think this question is of members' concern as well. Paragraph 21 has already mentioned the figures quoted by Ms. Emily Zhang. But those are just broad figures. I remember there used to be tables setting out the comparisons. So may I invite Ms. Zhang to provide us with supplemental information after the meeting? Yes, thank you. And on building surfaces, it includes fire surface system, electricity system, and IT system. Air conditioning is not included. It seems the reply is not satisfactory, so please wait for a second round. Other members may ask similar questions as well. Next, Ms. Christine Fong. Thank you, Chairman. I thank the administration for providing us with the design and estimated cost of the welfare facilities in the Kowloon Road phase. It will be a $400 million project. Now, I declare interest. My family member has been living in the Kwai court. However, they died of old age and they would not live to see the completion of the project. Now, for residents near Victoria Road and Wyman Road, my question is about the accessibility. That's the escalator or lift system. Next to the site, there's public housing projects, and there are lots of lifts. So will you be able to link it up with the Cayman Rise and housing estates nearby? Now, from the welfare building, you need to walk on the carriageway before you can reach the Cayman Rise. So will it be safe for the elderly residents? Now, the slope is steep, and that may explain the expensive cost. So can we have a detailed breakdown for the $399.7 million cost? what's the cost for laying the foundation? Now, the superstructure will cost some $30,000 per square meter. So can I have a more detailed breakdown? The third question from Ms. Fong is about the breakdown of the cost. In paragraph 18, we can see the broad figures. So usually our concern would be comparison of these items with similar projects. Now, just now, Mr. Andrew Lam has asked for a comparison with the charcoaling project. The administration had promised to provide additional information. Now, the administration said that the higher cost is because of more challenging site condition and more complicated design. Concerning the two other questions, concerning accessibility and so on, Under Secretary, will you answer the question or will Ms. Emily Say answer it? Chairman, allow me. Thank you, Ms. Fong, for your question. We attach importance to accessibility for the sake of elderly people and people with disabilities. Now, in Annex 6, we have set out how pedestrians can reach the upper part of the slope through the lift tower. Now, there is a parking bay near Victoria Road. Now, through the lift at phase 2, one can reach the welfare facility building. Now, we made the planning for Kowloon Road phase 1 and phase 2 together. So there is a barrier-free access between phase 1 and phase 2 of Kowloon Road, and then there is a covered walkway leading to the welfare facility building. Now, whether we can provide a parking bay for number 13 minibus to unload the passengers, we can think about that. And also the CDD has provided lifts at phase 2 as well. So that would be convenient for elderly residents. Concerning the foundation, now the return tender price is some $20 million. It has been set out in the paper already. Mr. Lam Chun Sing. Thank you, Chairman. Now, concerning social welfare facility, there is an integrated children and youth services center. So what is the expected demand for the service in the area? Now, the government has set a ratio, that is the number of youth and children per center. Now, with the declining birth rate and age of population, do we still need so many integrated youth center? Now, it's good to have this ICYSC. However, what if you find out that there is insufficient demand for services in the ICYSC, and on the other hand, there is too much demand for elderly care services? Is the design of the building flexible enough to allow the facility to be switched to other functions? Now, the administration mentioned about hourly parking space, but I'm more concerned about the accessibility for elderly people. That there's ambulances from the hospitals and also shuttle buses from welfare organizations. which would take elderly people to the facility. Many of those passengers would be wheelchair-bound or even required a pulley. So there is a union of emergency services which has complained of the lack of accessibility features. So I hope that there would be sufficient accessibility for emergency services and elderly services. The question has been asked by other members as well. I think in designing welfare facility building, the government would have thought about the accessibility level for elderly people. But still, I would invite the administration to give a response. Thank you. Concerning the demand for the ICYSC, in the HKPSG, every 12,000 population between the age of 6 and 24 would require an ICYSC. Now, according to the CNSD, by 2031, in the relevant districts, there will be some 34,000 people between the age of 0 and 24, accounting for 15% of the population in the district. Now, we do have a declining birth rate, so there are concerns how we can make full use of the ICYSCs. The Social Welfare Department is now adjusting the FSA service agreements with the tender awardees so that the organizations can make use of the centers to provide additional services other than youth services, as long as the organizations can handle it. So there is flexibility here. On accessibility, I would defer to Ms. Emily Zhe from the Housing Department. Thank you. There is a parking space for shuttle services for elderly people. The parking space is large enough for bedridden passengers. Next, Mr. Dennis Leung. Chairman, we have very scarce land resources in Hong Kong. So why isn't the site being used under the single site multiple use principle, but rather only a single complex is being built? And why is the projects not given to the Architectural Services Department, but the Housing Department? The project will take 9 years. It's a rather long construction period. For a school, it would only take 2 to 3 years. There may be a delay in terms of provision of services, given the long construction period. And also, there is a non-welfare facility part on the site. So what's the use of the remaining site? Given the small size as well as the lack of welfare facilities, how can the government ensure that there are sufficient housing yield as well as sufficient welfare facilities?
Well, let's hear from Ms. Se. Thank you. Let me give you further information about the complex. There are not just independent welfare facilities. There are also E&M fittings as well as parking spaces. We want to make good use of the roof. There will be greening features as well as a ball court on the roof. So we designed phases 1 and 2 together. It looks like the complex is separate and lower. That's because of the height restriction. At that location is 65 MPD. To the east of the next site is 140 MPD. That is the public housing area. We want to maximize the use of space without affecting the provision of community facilities, we want to provide as much welfare facilities as possible. We want to create synergy. We would like residents to use these facilities after population take in. What about the long construction period as well as incorporation of the non-welfare facilities for consideration? Who is to take the question? We take into account the scope of the site, service provision as well as site condition. 5 years is the optimum time because of the complicated ground condition. We need time to do the large diameter bore piles. We also have to use H-shape piles because of the complexity at the site. We need 5 years. Any follow-up, Mr. Leung? I think they need to look at the construction period. Yes, the site is complex, but technology is there to help to overcome these complications. Mr. Leung has given his view. We ask the RHSD to consider them. Ms. Se, thank you. We will try to improve as far as possible. We're looking at systems to speed up the process, and we'll do that as much as possible. Mr. Hong Kam In, I support the proposal. In the future, can the government relax the plot ratio for welfare facilities so that more can be accommodated? In relation to the cost, $300,000 is earmarked for energy-saving features. That covers lifts as well. Would there be other features? Say, for example, the facilities in the staircase. Just now it's mentioned that there will be a basketball court on the rooftop. Next to the site is a public housing estate. Sometimes the use of a basketball court causes a conflict because the residents nearby will be affected by the noise generated. I think you will have to tread very carefully. I will speak first and then I will defer to Ms. Se. Mr. Ho, we want to provide more welfare facilities. In the policy address in 2020, we said that 5% of the gross floor area will be earmarked for welfare facilities. We have done that. The total area is about 4.53% of the total floor area. Ms. Se talked about the building height restrictions. We have exhausted that. We will, if possible, identify more sites to provide more facilities. Ms. Se. The Housing Authority use many energy conservation features. Say, for example, in terms of watering, irrigation, water supply, lighting. We set the equipment to a certain lux to try to reduce the consumption of energy as much as possible. relating to the basketball court. Well, there is a ventilation corridor separating the residential area, reducing nuisance. In terms of design, we take into account lighting, and there are also nets or barriers to reduce nuisance caused to nearby residents. Just now, Mr. Wong talked about disturbance caused to residents. Anything else that you have in mind? Yes. The basketball court can be turned into a venue for other sports as well. It will be multi-purpose. We will take that into account in the use of materials. Next, Mr. Ken Wong. I support the project. The project will enhance the support to the elderly, youngsters, as well as carers. I want to ask about the transition of the project as well as barrier-free access. I can see there are tower lifts and barrier-free access linking Kwai Road and the Kennedy Town MTR station. Service users are mostly elderly people, children, or those with special needs. There are bus stops, minibus stops. What about the pathway from Phase 1? There are also other projects, say, for example, those relating to footbridges. Will there be a plan to make sure that the passageway as well as the different projects are well coordinated seamlessly? And coordinated seamlessly, Ms. Se. The lift tower and the footbridge will be completed before the end of the year. In relation to accessibility, it takes about a minute or so to walk from Phase 1 to Phase 2. We will not use ramps as far as possible. It will be a covered walkway for children and elderly people to go to these service facilities. Mr. Wong talked about barrier-free. So in addition to accessibility, I think Mr. Wong's asking about the way from MTR station to the facilities. Is it barrier-free? Yes. But what about coordination of the different projects? When our project is completed, the footbridge as well as the lift tower will be completed as well. You're talking about the completion time of the different projects. Ms. Se says that there will be seamless transition and completion of the various projects. Yes. Next, Ms. Julia Lau. Is something that Mr. Dennis Leung has asked. Will you consider phased commissioning of certain facilities, and if need be, make use of provisional permits? Someone talked about sustainability, and the administration talked about consideration being given. Anything to add in relation to energy saving features, say for example the use of environmentally friendly paint? Ms. Se. Early commissioning of welfare facilities is something we have considered. But if we need to do, but if we do that, we have to add but we need to add building services as well as accessible pathways, which will push up costs. If we commission the facilities early, there may be hazards posed to the users while the housing project is being done. So the current plan will be best for residents as well as users. We submit plans as soon as possible for approval. This will expedite the approval for permits and licenses for future service operators. Regarding energy-saving features and environmental friendly features, yes, they are incorporated into the project. Say, for example, there will be a dual water tank. So there will be a reduction of water wastage when the tanks are being cleaned. There will also be design of a zero irrigation, so that water can be reused. If there are environmentally friendly materials, we will consider using them. Any follow-up? No. Next, Mr. Lam Wai Kwong. The officials talked about other modes of transport, say taxis and buses. Do they have to go to the first floor car park? Where are these dropping off and pickup points? I see that there is a lay-by. You can take the lift to go to the facilities. But what if you use modes of transport other than buses? Any covered walkway for these users? Miss Se. Thank you. You find a roundabout in Annex 6 where taxis can pick up and drop for passengers. For minibuses and buses, it's the lay-by near Victoria Road. It's the new one. On the right-hand side, there is also another lay-by along Kowloon Road. There are minibuses serving Saiwan Estate using that location. In the future, passengers can drop off to walk to the facilities. It will be a covered walkway to a certain extent, but not all the way from the point where they alight, because that depends on the design of the bus operators. 2 members would like to ask questions a second time. 2 minutes question and answers included. Mr. Andrew Lam. 2 questions of mine remain unanswered. I'll try again. First, building services. Let me be more specific. We're talking about a standalone building. $30 million for building services, accounting for 7.6% of the total cost. Is on the low side. I'm not criticizing you. For energy saving features, it costs about $3 million with a saving of 17%. If I hear anything innovative, they'll now be happy. But compared to the other project, there is a series of energy saving features. Say, for example, lifts, energy regeneration systems. Does it mean that in this project, the features are smaller in scale? How did you work out the 17% savings?
Let's take this question first. Ms. Ye. Thank you, Chairman. I thank Ms. Andrew Lam for his follow-up question. The estimated cost for this project is separated into the standalone structure and the entire project. Now, the amount of energy saved by the energy conservation features, part of it would go to the building, but the majority would go to the entire housing estate. So the funding required for energy conservation features for the social welfare facility building is smaller. Now, concerning building services, it's just for the basic features because this is a bare shell construction project. There will be electricity and fire safety features. However, the ventilation system and the AC system is not included in the price tag. So that may explain why the cost seems to be on the low side. Chairman, I have a request here. I don't see the detailed breakdown of the cost from the paper. So I tend to compare the cost with other similar projects. According to my past experience, the cost for this project is rather low and I'm excited about it, but I really want to justify the cost. So please provide me with more information. I think Mr. Andrew Lam's request is justified. Whenever we see lower per unit price, of course we would be pleased to see it. However, we would very often compare projects with other similar projects. Now, if this project cost rather little, then in the future we may ask questions about why subsequent projects are more expensive than this one. So I hope the government would provide us with more detailed explanation on why this project is cheaper than other projects of a comparable size. Is that agreeable to the administration? Yes, we will do that, Chairman. We understand the need to compare the project with other projects. So after the meeting, we will submit the additional information. Am I allowed to ask for the question or should I press the button again? Yes, please. Ms. Christine Fong, 2 minutes, second round. Thank you, Chairman. The Commonwealth Road site used to have a Cyclone Academy. Now the site has been freed up 10 years ago. So that's a slope, and we are building 2 phases of housing estates as well as the social welfare building. On that slope, it costs some $1 billion altogether. So concerning the accessibility between the 3 projects, taking the project as a whole, can we achieve some saving in terms of the accessibility features, including lifts and escalators? Now the BHR is 65 meters. I think the government can apply to the Town Planning Board to relax the building height restriction since we are talking about social welfare facilities here. The TPP would be flexible about that. And as another member mentioned, there would be a basketball court, but it may generate noises. So why don't we just change the design into an indoor area for other purposes. Now, I agree that we need to adopt the single site multiple uses principle. It's better to apportion the management fees separately rather than chopping up the project. So Ms. Fong has asked two sets of questions. The second set relates to design standards and whether restrictions can be relaxed, for example, GFA and so on. It seems that this is not something that we can cover today. So I think the administration may consider those points in future projects. So on the first set of questions, may I invite Ms. Se to provide an answer? Thank you. We agree that we need to maximize the uses of the site. At the design stage, we have conducted various studies, including traffic and drainage services. So the GFA was 120,000 meters square for some 2,000 public housing units. In terms of the BHR, there are several considerations. That is the locality, the landscape, the view, as well as the ventilation. We agree that in future projects, we will consider whether we can relax the restrictions. However, for this project, we want to complete the social welfare facilities as soon as possible. It would take too much time if we go back to the town planning stage. And whether we can build the accessibility features together to create more synergy. Now for phase 2, from the geological survey, we understand that the rock layer is rather thick. So we won't dig too deep and we won't build too high. The existing design is the most efficient one. If we take forward the project together, we can build barrier-free access easily with covered walkways in between. There will also be separations between these structures to avoid blocking the airflow. So we have optimized the design already, and we hope that the project will be completed soon for the enjoyment of the residents. Mr. Andrew Lam has requested a third round of questions. 2 minutes, please. But please keep your questions succinct. The same applies to the administration. Thank you. Now, recurrent expenditure, $20.658 million. There are 6 facilities with 6,800 square meters in GFA in total. So each month is $250 per square meter. Compared with the Kowloon project, there are 3 facilities, $760 per square meter per month. So my question is simple. Is the difference solely because of the difference in cost of running the services, or is it because of the buildings themselves? Mr. Yong. Thank you, Chairman. Yes, there are 6 facilities in the Common Way Road projects, but 5 of them are being reprovisioned. So no additional funding is required in terms of recurrent expenditure. The $20 million funding proposal is mainly for the daily operating costs of the RCHE, including manpower costs and so on. Now for the Kowloon, all 3 facilities are new. So the recurrent expenditure is for all 3 facilities. So we have completed 3 rounds of Q&A. There are no further questions. I will put the proposal to a vote. Members who are supportive of the proposal set out in paper PWSC 2026-7, please raise your hands. Those against the proposal, please raise your hands. None. I think most of the members in the vote supported the proposal. The proposal is approved. On whether the Finance Committee should conduct further discussion on the proposal on the paper, I now put the matter to a vote according to paragraph 41A of the rules of the PWSC. That this subcommittee suggests further discussion by the Finance Committee on the proposals as out on PWSC 2026-274. I remind members, if the question is passed, it means that this subcommittee recommends further discussion of the paper by the FC. If it is negative, it means that we do not recommend further discussion of the paper by the FC. Those in favor of the question, please raise your hands. Those against, please raise your hands. I think most of the members in the vote were against the question. The question is negative. The subcommittee does not recommend further discussion of the paper, that is PWSC 2026-274 by the FC. The discussion for this item has been completed. I thank the government officials for attending the meeting. The next item, shall we invite the relevant officials to join us? Moving on to item 2, 203 GK Joint User Complex at Carpenter Road, Kowloon City. Please refer to paper PWSC 2026-7, number 5. Those who would like to speak, please press the Request to Speak button. We welcome the government officials. Please be seated. Members are invited to upgrade Project 203 GK to Category A at an estimated cost of $2,490 million in money of the day prices. The government has consulted the panel on developments concerning the proposal on the 28th of April. Members supported the administration to submit the funding proposal for the consideration of this subcommittee. The salient points of the panel's discussion has been sent to members via email on the 1st of June. In attendance of this item, the list has been set out on the agenda already. We welcome the Under-Secretary for Development, Mr. David Lam, and his team. So now the floor is open to members' questions. 13 members have indicated their wish to speak. They are Mr. Robert Lee, Chen Pui Kong, Kirsten Yang, Win Kit, Vincent Zhang, Lam Chen Sing, Hong Kam-min, Tommy Chung, Dennis Leung, Ms. Vivian Kong, Mr. Ben Chen, Jonathan Leung, and Ms. Christine Fong. 13 so far. Questions and answers included 4 minutes. Mr. Robert Lee. Thank you, Chairman. Concerning the joint user complex at Carpenter Road, Kowloon City, involves some $2.4 billion. I support it. In principle, the joint user complex can cater the need of the growing population in the area and provide diversified community services to the residents. It is the best use of the land resources. We can provide more municipal, cultural, leisure, as well as health care services to the residents. I have 2 questions. Now, after the completion of the project, it is expected that it will lead to a $120 million of recurrent expenditure per year. So for the users' departments, including FEHD, Labor's Department, and so on, now previously they were renting private premises for their office separately. So how much cost can be saved by moving into the new building? Now, if the building surface will cost, the FNE will cost $8.2 million. So will the administration requires the users department to reuse the furniture and fit outs from the previous premises to further trim down the cost.
議員嘅支持啦。
I thank Mr. Lee for his support in relation to the details of the recurrent expenditure. I will defer to the GPA. Let me add that recurrent expenditure covers many items. We will reprovision the Lee K dispensary. The service of the family medicine clinic will be able to serve 50,000 people instead of 40,000. That accounts for an additional recurrent expenditure. In relation to the $80 million that is the tender price returned, it has gone through a vigorous procedure, one that is competitive. We will spend when it's needed. I'll defer to the GPA for the other parts of the question. Mr. Mock? You're speaking for the Government Property Agency, Deputy Administrator. In relation to leasing private properties by government departments, the expenditure is about $1.28 million. The monthly expenditure is about $210,000. I'd like to correct the mistake. Is FNE $80 million? Well, can the furniture be reused? Anyone? Under Secretary. Departments may supplement. But let me say that in relation to the clinic, what is very difficult for furniture to be furniture from markets be reused. The existing facilities have been in use for many years, so it may not be cost effective. The audiovisual system, the public announcement system, will be replaced in the sports center. We do some gatekeeping in terms of furniture and equipment. We reuse as far as possible, but if it is not cost effective to reuse it, then we will procure a new set. Mr. Chung Pui-Kong. We see libraries, public markets, community hall, and sports facilities that will serve the public. I'm happy to see that. I have some questions. I think these are issues encountered in many districts. The community hall is frequently used, but the usage rate for conference rooms is rather low. I'd like to ask about the design of the community hall. Will you adopt a multi-purpose design so that different activities can take place in conference rooms? Can you also increase the capacity of these conference rooms? The library. Is it managed by government departments or outsourced to other organizations? If it is the latter, the problem is that usage will be limited to members, not the general public. What about the opening hours of the library? Can it be extended well into the evening for students to revise? Some study rooms close very early. Will you talk to government departments in relation to the design? The member is right. This is a design and build contract. We'll talk to departments about the details when contractors take over. We first gauge demand. In terms of the community hall, we've talked to the Home Affairs Department. The current capacity is 450 seats. That's sufficient for a general community hall. In relation to flexibilities built in the individual parts of the design, we'll consider that later. This is the library is revisioned from the one in the Municipal Services Building. It's managed by the LCSD. You'll have to ask them about opening hours. We have added a study room of 100 seats in the new library. So there is a higher capacity provided. I'll defer to the LCSD about opening hours. It's a public library managed by the LCSD. It's open to the general public. It closes at 7 o'clock like the existing one. We've added a study room to improve service. Yes, the study room can open till a bit later. We will add a round-the-clock self-service in the library, say for example, drop-off box. So additional services are available. So these services can be accessible outside the opening hours of the library. Mr. Kitson-Yang, I support the project. When I was a district councillor, we've had many discussions in relation to the project. It's something that the residents are waiting for. The Lee K Memorial Dispensary is old. It still uses fans. There are many private residential complexes in the area. Very often we have to try to lease government facilities to hold conferences. In general, I don't worry too much about that, but I see there is a drop by 160 parking spaces because of the many redevelopment projects. So I have some concern about supply of car parking spaces. In terms of population, well, we're talking about an old district in Kowloon City. There are about 5,000 units under redevelopment. In the future, we will see 2.5 times more in population. For Kowloon City, there will be an increase in population about 300% in terms of parking spaces. There will be a huge demand from the additional population. With a drop of 160 parking spaces, we can foresee an acute shortage. There will be 2 stories of parking spaces in the joint user complex. Will there be more parking spaces provided given the reduction in private developments? This doesn't just serve Kowloon City, but also people from Kowloon Tong and other areas. There is a huge demand expected, but can we ask for more parking spaces be provided? This point has been raised in the panel meeting. Well, this time I'm talking from the perspective of population. Members are very concerned about parking spaces in Kowloon City. There are two levels. Additional demand from additional population, that is ancillary. In the past, all buildings in Kowloon City did not provide parking spaces, but now we have a new standard. So there will be a certain number of parking spaces provided in new developments. We liaise with the Transport Department to set the standard. For the old areas, old developments is ancillary parking. On the other hand, we have people coming into Kowloon City to shop or to eat. There are actually more parking spaces. I need more time. There are about 400 parking spaces in one of the projects. There's KC 017 and 015. We can provide additional parking spaces. We have kept some metered spaces from the two redevelopments. There are two public car parks. So it will be an increase to 1,050 from 735, an additional 300 spaces. Now people use roadside metered parking spaces because shops don't provide their own parking spaces. But for KC 015 and 017, they are shopping malls with parking spaces. We're talking about 190 parking spaces. So if the redevelopment projects are approved, there will be an increase in public parking spaces. In terms of private ones, they will be provided separately. There will be an overall increase by 300 spaces, but there will be additional 3,000 residential units. I understand the consideration of the administration, but I asked them to consider what I've floated. Well, the ancillary parking spaces is what is a concept. I'm sure the administration will consider your views. We fully understand that there is an acute demand for parking spaces in Kowloon City. We try to provide as many as possible. I thank the member for his views. Mr. Ng Won Kit. I support the project. I'd like to get some more information. Apportionment of different departments. This is a multi-purpose site. About $1.2 billion is to be paid by the URA. The $2.4 billion will be paid by the government. What is the basis of the apportionment? Very often we see cost overrun. If that is the case, how would it work with the apportionment? And there is the student health clinic, family medicine clinic, and also elderly service. They will be provided in floors 3 to 5. Students go there to get health checks. So what about arrangements of different users? We don't want to have a cross-infection.
2 questions. Thank you, Mr. Ng. I would like to clarify one point. We have submitted information to the electrical before. The number of cost overrun for our previous projects is extremely low. Cost overrun is not a frequent occurrence. So please rest assured, the return tenant price is reflected in the estimated cost. So the contractor we find the estimated cost reasonable. And concerning apportionment, the URA is rebuilding some structures on the existing site. So those GFA would be, the cost for those GFA would be borne by the URA. Now for additional or new facilities, that would be borne by the government. So in terms of GFA, the URA would bear 1/3 of the cost, the government would bear 2/3 of the cost. Concerning the building height restriction, it's rather tricky, so that's why we need the government property agency to coordinate. Now usually, if you have been to a wet market, all the stores would be placed on the first and second floor. So that's the same for healthcare facilities. We would try to house the healthcare facilities on lower floors. And please rest assured there will be measures to prevent cross-contamination. So those will be considered in the detailed design stage. No follow-up question. Next, Mr. Vincent Zhang. Thank you, Chairman. I support the Carpenter Road Joint User Complex project. I've been following up on this project for many years. I have been a director of the URA. The URA has taken a lot of considerations in arriving at this design. So that's the perfect balance point. The residents of the Kowloon City District have been consulted. And there will be enhancements to the wet market and the sports center. So in the medium to long run, the joint user complex will be able to meet the demand in the neighborhood. So I've consulted my colleague who is a district council member of the Kowloon City District. So they have asked me to put up some requests. Now they would like to have zero gap for relocating the tenants of the existing wet market. And they hope that there will be sufficient stores for tenants to move in. And also concerning the nuisance caused during the construction period by work vehicles and so on, there should be mitigation. And also there are a lot of elderly people in the Kowloon City area, so there should be nighttime healthcare services. And there are a lot of old buildings in the neighborhood, and there's a lack of conference venues for owners corporations meetings. So we hope there will be more venues for OC meetings. Now, according to the plan, there is a footbridge. It has escaped my attention before. It is connecting How Wong Road and Ga Tin Wai Road. So that footbridge will be linked to other URA projects. So will that footbridge be built together with the building? Under Secretary, thank you, Mr. Zhang, for your questions. First, on wet market, the operating area will be 20% larger than the existing one. Now, concerning the number of stores, it depends on our discussion with the store tenants. Now, will there be a gap period for the tenants? No, there will be a seamless transition. We will have the new wet market built first and then relocate the tenants before demolishing the old wet market to reduce the inconvenience caused. Concerning the nuisance caused to the nearby residents, now that's the same for government projects and URA projects. We would have consulted the local stakeholders concerning the arrangement of heavy-duty vehicles. We will try to minimize the nuisance caused. So we are very experienced in these projects. Concerning the community halls, there is much need for more conference rooms. Can we provide more flexibility to OC meetings? We will be sure to bring it up to the relevant departments. Now, the footbridge is a good point. The project is not only for developing the area, it will also enhance the connectivity within the area. If you look at the plan on Annex 1, Enclosure 1, now to the south of the work site, it is KC017, the URA project. Now on the first floor, upon completion of KC017, the footbridge would connect the two projects. And further south to KC017, there will be an underground passageway leading to the Sung Wong Toi MTR station. So once the path is completed, there will be a covered walkway all along from the MTR station to the joint user complex. Now the Kowloon City Park nearby is being renovated. There will also be a barrier-free access leading to the Meidong estate on higher ground. So with this project, we can connect all the projects to the MTR station. Mr. Lam Chun Sing. Thank you. Now, in the old Kowloon City wet markets, there are 500 stores with 80% occupancy rate. Some 400 of them are being occupied. So that's quite good. Now, after the completion of the projects, the stores will be 1.5 times larger, and also it will be air conditioned. Now, despite the improved environments, will the rents be more expensive? Will the existing tenants be willing to move in to the new market, or do they prefer lower rent and smaller store sizes? After all, they are small businesses. Have you considered the views and the affordability of the tenants? Second, Mr. Kissen Yang mentioned about the need for parking spaces. Now my question is similar. The parking spaces are located underground. There will be a 2-story car park. So you will spend $170 million to build the underground portion of the building. So since the money will be spent anyway, would the additional cost for building another story of parking space be minimal? In that case, we can provide more parking spaces to meet the future demand for those who work in the joint user building, as well as for other commercial vehicles in the neighborhood. Undersecretary, concerning the rent of the new wet market, I will defer to the FEHD. Now, many tenants are unhappy with the small size of old stores. Larger stores would be good for tenants' operation. So we are now working with the FEHD as well as the existing tenants to help them out in terms of the transition. Concerning the underground car park, now that's equivalent to 2 stories. If we dig deeper, the increase in building costs would be exponential. Say, for example, we have conducted researches on previous projects. If we build a 3rd story in the basement, that would be 200% more expensive than the first 2 levels. Further down, the figure would go up exponentially. So building a 2-story deep underground car park would come with significant costs already. It would not be cost effective to build a 3rd level. So in the future, we'll be able to provide 300 more public parking spaces. That's the right balance between building costs and parking space needs. I will defer to the FEHD on the rent. Ms. Chen. Thank you. Now the reference rent is set by the RVD, considering the location of the wet market as well as the bidding price of similar stores in other wet markets. Now the redeveloped Kowloon City wet market will undergo the same assessments before its commission. Now I gather that the member is concerned about the higher rents because of the better environment and also the air conditioning. Most importantly, it is for the tenants to decide whether they would choose to move to the new market under the new rent level. We will give the affected tenants an opportunity to consider. If they choose not to continue operation in the new wet market in the new joint use building, we will provide suitable assistance. For example, ex gratia arrangement. Now, as mentioned by the Undersecretary, we have been in close touch with the existing tenants during this project. We have been gauging their views in terms of relocating, and necessary assistance will be provided. Next, Mr. Hong came in. I would like to remind members about the time. We have the council at 11 a.m. And this meeting will continue on Friday to discuss the remaining items. Still, I will strive to put this item to a vote before this meeting ends and leave the remaining items to the 5th of June. So after Mr. Hong Kam-in has spoken, I will draw a line. So for those members who would like to speak, please press the button as soon as possible. Mr. Hong Kam-in. Thank you, Chairman. Concerning the joint use complex at Carpenter Road, Kowloon City. There are 3 questions. The first one is about paragraph 3. The project will come with a basement. It will be used for car parking. So will there be EV charging facilities? How many charging posts will there be? Now the work period will be from 2026 to 2035, spanning across 9 years. Can we compress the timetable? The third question is on paragraph 45, energy saving features. It would cost $23.8 million. Now, I went to the Hunan Museum some time ago. Now, the entire energy saving structure has been outsourced to a third party. That contractor paid for the building of the energy saving features. And that sum would be reimbursed through energy save in the future. So can we adopt a similar model? Can we collaborate with contractors, or are we paying from our own pockets?
一直根據而家我哋嘅
New parking spaces in government facilities will provide charging points. The construction period is not 9 years. It's no more than 5 years. We will build a bare shell. With the dry weather, we hope that the project will be completed in 4.5 years. In relation to energy saving, green, as well as energy reuse features. Well, that is in relation to the overall design. we're just waiting for funding approval to start the project. So we will use the current funding approach to deal with energy conservation, green and recycled features. Any follow-up? No? Next, Mr. Tommy Chung. I'd like to ask about parking spaces and pick-up drop-off points. Just now, Mr. Yang talked about the number of parking spaces. In March 2016 and May 2020, the URA as well as the Transport and Traffic Committee under the Kowloon City District Council has dropped from to about 300 or so. I understand that there are restrictions to provide more car parking spaces, but I'd like to ask, will you explore ways to increase the number of parking spaces? There are 4 parking spaces for disabled users, but there is an issue. A lot of the facilities will be moved to the joint complex. If there is only one pickup drop-off point, there will be congestion. Have you considered that? Under Secretary, we have considered this for a very long time. If we increase the number of stories for parking spaces, the cost will be pushed up. There are about 30 parking spaces in the ancillary facilities as well. Some of these may be open to the public after office hours. We will be happy to consider that. Yes, there is demand for pick-up drop-off points. There are 2 such points for taxis. These are covered. Users of the facilities in the complex, if they need pick-up drop-off points, they can, say for example, make reservation to use other available pick-up drop-off points. We have provided sufficient pick-up drop-off points. Any follow-up? No. Next, Mr. Dennis Leung. First question about car park. But there is still space left unused in the second floor of the basement. Why not? Why is it not fully used? Is there sufficient parking spaces for the complex, because the facilities will generate a high demand? Will there be a long waiting time? Third question. I believe that the cooked food center as well as the public market will be air conditioned. What about rodent problems? Will there be improved measures to tackle that problem? In relation to ducks, they use the most direct way, but will you improve the design to prevent rodent infestation? I don't see any information about refuse collection. There is a public market and a cooked food center there. Will there be space for recycle, reuse and collection of waste? The staff of the public market use plant rooms as their office, and this causes rodent infestation. Will there be space earmarked as staff rooms. I think the current approach adopted is unable to address these problems. For the design of the public market, I will defer to the FEHD. All I can say is that the hardware will be better. There will be a room for the carcass of pigs. It will improve hygiene. We'll also provide a collection of waste as well as recycling facilities. Staff room, I will defer to the FEHD. For lifts, there are 11 passenger lifts. They will serve different floors. 3 for healthcare facilities. We've talked to departments. We think that the ancillary facilities provided are enough to meet demand. Recycling. Yes, there will be environmental facilities as well as recycling facilities. I'll defer to the FEHD for the design of the public market. Ms. Chen. I thank Mr. Leung for raising a number of issues, say for example, rodent problem. Rest assured, because the design will be the latest design. The design will address rodent problems. We adopt the latest standards, say in terms of drains. We will also enhance rodent prevention work. Store operators will have to store the food, the leftover of food items properly. In relation to staff facilities required by staff, we will also follow the latest standards. What about the unused space in the lower floor of the basement? My answer is that the space is fully used. The headroom in other car parks is not high, but this one's different. We have to cater for coaches as well as lorries. We have maximized the space for the 2 levels. Next, Ms. Vivian Wong. Well, we have there is a special characteristics in the public market in Kowloon City. It has a special flavor in culture and other elements. We want audience from concerts to go to Kowloon City. We want them to stay there longer. Will there be conservation of these special cultural elements in Kowloon City, say for example the Thai culture? Will the design incorporate the latest consumption pattern of patrons? These elements will be showcased not just in these projects. We want to preserve the original character of the area through development. KC 017 and 015, after redevelopment, will provide a better environment for pedestrian. The new market will also provide a better environment. There is also bigger flexibility. I will defer to the relevant department in relation to the conservation of the ethnic or Thai characteristics of the area. Mr. Leung? Just now, member asked if the special characteristics of Kowloon City is preserved in our project. The design of the facade of the public market will echo the bricks used in the wall city. There are also plaques as well as foundation features of the Lee K Memorial Dispensary. There is collective memory. They will be reprovisioned. In relation to Chiu Chow and Swato elements, there is an arrangement in place for shop operators to be relocated in the public market. As you heard from David, that is Mr. Lam, the Undersecretary, there will be a connection from Meitung Estate, Carpenter Road Park, via the complex to the Kai Tak new development. So there is enhanced connectivity. There is a project to the east. We want to revitalize the Kowloon city. And it will be linked to the Kai Tak new development area to provide new experience for people who visit the area. Mr. Ben Chen, I'm also concerned about parking spaces. There are parking spaces in Kowloon City Plaza as well as roadside metered parking. I believe that demand for metered parking spaces will increase with the complex. I'm sure that the parking spaces in the Kowloon City Plaza will be fully used as well. The complex will provide only 30 parking spaces. Is it worth spending that money to excavate two levels to provide only 30 parking spaces? Some shoppers may drive to use the public market. Some store operators may also drive there. There may be pick-up drop-off points, but they are not parking spaces. This doesn't address the shortage in parking spaces. Can you justify the two-level basement parking area providing only 30 parking spaces? How much will you spend on that? Mr. Chen also asked about parking spaces, but from a different perspective. He's asking about cost effectiveness. You spend money and time to excavate, only to provide 30 spaces. Is it cost effective?
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Chen, for your question. Now, there are only 30 parking spaces from the two-story deep basement. We have many drop-off points for passengers. There are as many as 30 of them. They are unlike parking spaces for residential projects. They are just drop-off points. Outreach services as well as healthcare services require parking spaces for their shuttles. And also there are a lot of goods vehicles for the wet market requiring temporary parking spaces. So those vehicles would take up much larger spaces compared with private cars. So we have already maximized the spaces available in the two-story basement to provide as many parking spaces and drop-off points and loading and unloading bay as possible. There's great demand for these facilities from the wet market. Now, concerning parking spaces available in the district, we agree that there's room to increase the number, but it may not necessarily be achieved through a single project. If you look at the larger figure, the number of public parking spaces to be provided by the URA in its future projects, there will be more than 300 from those other projects. So we will address the shortage of parking spaces through redevelopment. Now, earlier on, we tried to move the on-the-street parking spaces underground. Now we do the contrary to make it more convenient to drivers. Mr. Jonathan Leung, thank you. 2 questions on single-site multiple users accessibility. I agree with these principles. On the other hand, there are 2 issues. First, parking spaces. Now, we have discussed the matter for quite some time. I will not labor on the point, but my point is we need more roadside parking spaces. There are 30 drop-off points. During nighttime, these drop points should be made available for private car drivers as well during nighttime. Now, concerning conference rooms, I have much experience about the lack of meeting venue for OC meetings. So we would only get 1 quota place for an OC meeting each year for each housing project. We can't find a venue for an extraordinary general meeting. So I hope the government will be able to provide more meeting spaces for OCs. Now, what about kitchen waste recycling in the area? There are lots of catering businesses in the Kowloon City area. The government has been promoting the recycling of kitchen waste, but the recycling rate is still underwhelming. There should be more support. The Kowloon City market, that's a very cherished memory for Hong Kong people. It is a very popular market with very good facilities. So I hope the new market will be able to live up to its expectation. Now, in my own constituency, that is Aberdeen, I'm not very happy with the redevelopment of wet markets in my constituency. So I hope the Undersecretary would work with the FEHD to make sure that the layouts of stores and sizes are suitable for the tenants. Yes, I know there will be better facilities, but in terms of operation, they should be catered to tenants' needs. Before the Undersecretary makes a reply, I remind members that in terms of time, the meeting was scheduled to end at 10:30 a.m. Now, there are still 3 members who are yet to speak during the first round. I don't think I can accommodate a second round. So after Ms. Christine Fong, Mr. Andrew Lam, and Ms. Julia Lau have spoken, and after the administration has replied them, I will put the matter to the vote. So all members who are within the complex, please come back in time for the vote. After Ms. Julia Lau has finish Q&A, I will put the matter to a vote. Now, judging by the time, I need to extend the meeting by 15 minutes to complete the remaining procedures for this item. The third item will be rolled over to the meeting on the 5th of June. So members, please come back to meeting room 1 for the vote in a moment's time. Under Secretary. Thank you, Chairman. First of all, I thank Mr. Leung for his question. Now we will try to keep the metered parking space as much as possible. Now the second question is about flexibility of our venues. I think that's something that we can accommodate. I will take this view back to my team. Now we have consulted the local stakeholders concerning the functions of the joint user complex. Say, for example, in wet markets, there's recycling facilities. In the same building, there are also healthcare facilities as well as other social and community facilities. So we did not include kitchen waste recycling facility, considering the other its compatibility with other facilities. Now, cooked food store. Now, the wet market is expected to be built up in 5 years' time. So we are now discussing the matter with the existing cooked food stores tenants to gauge their wish. So please rest assured the design of the wet market and the layout of the stores will be compatible with tenants' needs. Next, Ms. Christine Fong. Thank you. About the design of the joint user complex at Carpenter Road, I like it very much. It can connect the Song Wong Toi MTR station and the Carpenter Road. Now, near Shingnam Road, there are many Thai restaurants. Also, there are some businesses near the old Kowloon City Airport. So maybe these elements can be incorporated into the design of the future joint user complex. Now, it costs $174 million to dig the basement. Now, is the headroom high enough to accommodate parking of 2 rows of cars? Now, the building cost is $34,200 per square meter, so I think the cost is reasonable. That's for the wet market. Now, I know there will not be kitchen waste recycling facility, but can we have a community kitchen? I asked the same question for all new markets built. If there is a community kitchen, we can benefit the residents nearby. Now, this is a design and build contract. Now, on the rooftop, there will be greening. So can we use the rooftop as, say, football or basketball courts? Now, there are lots of examples of water leakages on rooftop wherever there are greening on top of the building. So what can we do to prevent that? Now, the recurrent expenditure will be $120 million. Now, according to the RGSD, some costs will be saved through reduction of through rents. And what about management fees? And will there be smart management features? Under Secretary, concerning community kitchen, I would defer to the FEHD. They are the operator of the wet market. Concerning the portion of the recurrent expenditure which will go to the management. We don't have the figure right now. We will supplement the information after the meeting. However, recurrent expenditure is estimated based on the management experience of individual departments. That includes personnel costs and so on. About rooftop, the idea is to open up as much of the area as possible for public's enjoyment. Now, the design now is to make it a park or garden, or whether we can make it a basketball court. But we may need to put up fences to protect the public, so that may affect the aesthetics, so we need to think about it. Concerning management fee as well as community kitchen, I would defer to the FEHD. May I invite the FEHD to supplement on the question of community kitchen? Ms. Eunice Chan, Assistant Director. Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Ms. Fong. Now, the new public market is for the relocation of the old Kowloon City Market, so there will not be a community kitchen according to our design. Concerning Ms. Fong's suggestion, we will consider the feasibility with the relevant departments. Concerning the breakdown of the recurrent expenditure, we will provide the information after the meeting. Next, Mr. Andrew Lam. Thank you, Chairman. 2 questions. Now, there is a 60,000 meter GFA. There will be facilities run by some 10 departments. So I think the floor areas have already been apportioned to different departments. Now, what's the principle of cost apportionment? Do all the user departments need to pay for the building cost and the operating cost of the building? Now let's look at the public market. It's 4,300 square meter large. Now I know you are negotiating the matter with the existing tenants in the Kowloon City Market. This is an exceptional case, and I don't think it should become a precedent for future public market projects. Now, the existing market has an occupancy rate of 80%. It's not too low, but definitely not high. So in the process of discussion, if there is an underwhelming preference among the tenants to move to the new market, what will happen? Will the FEHD continue to run the public markets, or will the public markets be used for other purposes? The design is already completed and the cost is already apportioned. Now, about the public markets. In terms of the design and spaces, the FEHD has gauged the views of the existing tenants for their needs. After the completion of the wet market, the FEHD will manage the market. Now, in other markets, you can see that some stores are being modified for flexible use, and we can do the same for the new markets here. Now, even if the space is handed over to a department for use, if the needs no longer exist, there is a mechanism to deploy the space for other meaningful uses. So there is sufficient flexibility in our mechanism. The FEHD will continue to talk to the tenants to utilize the space. Now, concerning the apportionment of cost, we have the breakdown of the net operating floor area apportioned to each department. Now, this is a public works projects, the government will pay for the cost, and it is very difficult to break down the cost because we are building the complex as a whole. So the government and the government property agency will coordinate, and we are just sharing the cost with URA.
Members, please note that after Ms. Lau has spoken, I will put the item to a vote. Members who are in the complex, please make time for that. Next, Ms. Julia Lau. I'd also like to talk about the design of the two-floor car park. Will you consider a different design? That is, to put the 2 floors of parking spaces above grade? This is not just about cost consideration. There are also recurrent costs as well. Putting the facilities above the ground floor will save money. The aesthetic side can be addressed through special design to make the parking spaces, to make the car park look nice. Are there any requirements in the use of environmentally friendly materials? Any requirements in relation to design characteristics in the tender exercise? About moving the car park above grade. Some facilities are better put on the ground floor or above, say for example public markets. It's the best if it is on the ground floor or the first floor. So we need to put the public market close to the ground floor. We have struck a balance in relation to utilization of service, cost, and other factors. Anyone from the URA will reply? Mr. Leung? Mr. Anderson Leung. There is a requirement in the tender document to meet the platinum level of beams. They will also have to meet a minimum requirement of 10% in terms of energy conservation. In relation to carbon reduction, we ask for the use of green steel and an alternative to be used instead of a cement, that is an environmentally friendly material, so they will all help to reduce carbon emission. That's the end of the discussion of the item. Mr. Chen Hao-feng would like to declare interest. I'm the non-executive director of the URA. That's the end of the discussion of the item. I now put this item to the vote. Those in favor of the proposal, that is the PWSC 2627 Number 5, please raise your hands. Those against, please raise your hands. 1 is against the project. I think majority of members who have voted are in favor of the proposal. The item is endorsed. In relation to further discussion by the Finance Committee, in accordance with paragraph 41A of the Public Works Subcommittee procedure, I put the item to the vote. The subcommittee recommends further discussion of PWSC 2627 number 5 by the Finance Committee. Let me remind members, if the question is endorsed, it means the subcommittee recommends further discussion by the FC of the item. If the question is negative, it means the subcommittee does not recommend further discussion by the FC. Those in favor of the question, please raise your hands. 1, 2. Those against, please raise your hands. I think members who have voted, majority of them oppose to the question. The question is negative. The subcommittee does not recommend further discussion of PWSC 2627 number 5 by the Finance Committee. I thank government officials for attending this meeting. There are still 3 items that will have to be handled in the next meeting, which is on the 5th of June, that is this Friday, between 9 a.m. and noon. It is an additional meeting to discuss the items on the agenda. The items approved in this meeting will be considered by the Finance Committee after June. Meeting adjourned.